Let's dive into the latest MLB Power Rankings. It's Monday, which means it's time to do so. The Brewers' franchise record 14-game win streak may have ended, but their dominance certainly continues. You see them in that number one spot. And the Yankees, painful to say, a little bit back on track with a strong week. Joining us now to break it all down, CBS Sports' Matt Snyder and Julian McWilliams. So, Matt, the Cubs are just outside the top five at number 6, and they open up a 5-game series with the Brewers today. What's at stake for Chicago?
They need to solidify their wild card spot and just focus on just get that top wild card. You can host a 3-game series in Wrigley Field because I don't see them outplaying the Brewers by 8 games the rest of the season. Now, sure, the Brewers made up 8 games really, really fast, and the Cubs have more than enough time to completely flip that script. But, you know, the Brewers building this big of a lead, anything outside of the Cubs sweeping the Brewers in 5 games, I would say, means that the division's off the table, and I just can't see them sweeping them in 5 games. The offense has not been near good enough in the second half. They've been playing mediocre baseball for several months now. Kyle Tucker is broken right now, so a lot of things would have to change right now for the Cubs to really carve into that division lead. So again, it's focus on hosting that wild card game instead of having to go to San Diego or Philadelphia or something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is necessary. The Brewers are just a hot team, right? And sometimes you get hot at the right time. Well, they got hot in the second half of the season. It intended to be the right time. So with the Cubs, I think they just got to get back to playing consistent baseball, right? They've been inconsistent. Pete Armstrong struggled. Kyle Tucker struggled. So when you're looking at that team, yes, they still have a plus 117 run differential, which is actually second to the Brewers. But they're going to have to figure out a way to put together some wins because the National League is indefinitely the toughest division in baseball.
It certainly is. The Cubs have won 4 of their last 5 against the Brewers this season, giving them a little bit of momentum heading into today's series. How about the Padres? I was listening to my husband earlier talk about the Padres Dodgers. They were swept by the Dodgers after gaining control of the NL West and are now at number 7. Matt, what does this mean for their playoff push? Is there a concern that, you know, they're sinking at the wrong time, I guess?
Yeah, it seems like anytime the Padres feel or like they're making up some ground on the Dodgers and they're feeling good about themselves, they just get little brothered, and that's exactly what happened over the weekend. They were one of the hottest teams, non-Brewers division, in baseball heading into the weekend. The Dodgers had just gotten swept by the Angels, and they go in there and the Dodgers sweep them. Dodgers are 8-2 against the Padres this season. It's kind of unbelievable how that went down. But look, the Padres are still a very strong wild card team. I expect them to get things back on track against a Giants team that is absolutely terrible right now. So I just talked about the Cubs and that wild card situation. It does look like we're headed towards something like San Diego at Chicago in the wild card round, and that would be a really good game. Both of these teams are inconsistent, but when they're good, they're really, really good. It's a shame that the Padres got little brothered over the weekend because it was cool that they took over first place for a quick second.
Jenny, that's what champions do, right? When you feel like you're right there, they suddenly just take off again. And I think that's what we're looking at with the Dodgers. Look, I mean, the Padres have one of the better rosters in baseball. They obviously had the best deadline in baseball. Ramon Laureano's been one of the better players in baseball, probably the best trade deadline acquisition, if you ask me right now. But I think, again, they're going to have to focus on doing the little things. They made a lot of blunders, a lot of just careless mistakes in those games, errors. And by the way, Fernando Tatis, what's going on with him? I mean, he hasn't hit a home run basically in 2 months. So if you're looking at him and you're looking at this team, they need to figure out a way to get him going because they don't go anywhere if he's not a part of the mix and he's not successful.
That's a really good point. Matt, I'm going to ask you next about the Guardians sitting at number 15 after being swept by the Braves, now falling 3.5 games back from that final AL wildcard spot. How can they recover?
Well, they were probably playing too good, right? Like they looked like they were going to be one of the major sellers going into the trade deadline. They'd lost 10 in a row, and all of a sudden they got really, really hot, and everything was clicking for them. They got right up on the Yankees' heels. Now they've lost 4 or 5. The Yankees probably woke up last week. I think the Royals are probably, as you can see, I ranked the Royals ahead of them. The Royals are probably a bigger threat for the wild card at this point. And what the Guardians can do is go back to playing how they did before last week, but they do not not have an easy upcoming schedule at Arizona, at Texas. Not the hardest teams in the league, but that's not an easy trip. And then they've got the Rays and Mariners at home before they go to Boston, before they go to Tampa. Then they host the Royals. Like, they don't play any pushovers for quite a while, so they need to lock back in and play consistent ball again. I don't really think that's coming. I think that they were playing too well, and last week was the regression.
That makes sense. Atlanta's sweep marked their 5th series win in a row, really putting pressure on Cleveland to respond quickly in that one. The Rangers now, they've lost 8 of their last 9 games. They're now 5 games back in the wild card race. Julian, what's going wrong in Texas?
For me, it's simple. It's similar to the Mets. Your best stars aren't performing. Marcus Semion's not having a good season. Corey Seager's not having a good season by his standards. He's hitting 203 this month. Adolis Garcia has not had a good season. He's on the injured list. And if you're looking at this team, you're saying, well, what has happened? Well, I think it has to start with the stars. Jock Peterson, another guy who hasn't played well this year. So I think this team, look, they have a lot of talent. Probably one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. And I think that's what helped keep them afloat for this long. But when you're looking at your star position players not performing, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. You talk about their stars not performing. The Rangers offense has scored just 21 runs over their last 9 games. That's their lowest 9-game stretch all season long, so they got to get that offense going. The Diamondbacks, they're number 19 after being swept by the Rockies. Reports that Ketel Marte is frustrating his teammates. That's never a good sign. How big of a concern is this for Arizona, Matt?
A pretty big one, because, look, so much went wrong this season. It started with Zach Gallen being pretty much bad from the start of the year, and that continues right now. The bullpen kind of fell apart early. Corbin Burns went down, needing Tommy John surgery. But the one thing I always thought with this team is, even when they traded Josh Naylor and Eugenio Suarez and Merrill Kelly in front of the trade deadline, was they're going to get Corbin Burns at some point back next year, and they have such a good foundation on the offensive side with Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte both locked up for several years. Well, if one of those pieces is causing problems, then you get worried that they might have to blow the whole thing up. And I do think, and Julian can speak to this as well, but for something to go public, I feel like it has to have been lingering for a long time, because little stuff happens all the time and the players just get over it. But for something to go public, that's when I think it's very worrisome.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to like the Rafael Devers situation last year. Little murmurs started coming out about, him being a little bit surly or whatever, and that stuff, it turns out ultimately to be true, right? So we look at the Marte situation, teammates, executives, whomever are talking, right? And they're leaking this stuff to media, be it in conversation or be it that they just want it out there. So when you're looking at this team, this is a team that was in the World Series 2 years ago, right? That's kind of scary to think about. And now all of a sudden they're having all these internal issues. You're looking at this team, you're saying, okay, Corbin Carroll's a guy that they wrapped up for so long. Well, what do they do with him long term? So there's a lot of questions going into next year. I think they're going to have to answer, because the foundation, as Matt said, is there, but they just haven't been able to put it together on the ball field.
Arizona dropping 8 of their last 10 games. And as you mentioned, it could just be one sour apple in the clubhouse and it can mess up an entire season. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Matt, Julian, thank you so much for the latest in baseball. We got some good games on.
What's up, Dodgers Nation? Victor here. And oh boy, do we have something spicy to talk about today. You know how we always say the Dodgers don't just reload, they upgrade? Well, buckle up, because the latest buzz has LA making moves behind the scenes. And not just any moves. We're talking about a potential blockbuster involving one of the most talented, yet most puzzling players in baseball, Byron Buxton. Yes, the $100 million Platinum Glove winner from the Minnesota Twins. Rumor has it the Dodgers are not only interested, but they may already be working on a verbal pre-agreement with Buxton to lock him up for the offseason. Sounds crazy, right? But when you break it down, the Twins' rebuild, Buxton's situation, and the Dodgers' needs, this could be one of those moves that completely changes the narrative heading into 2026. Let's start with Minnesota. The Twins shocked everyone at the trade deadline. Instead of pushing for contention, they flipped the script, dealt away talent, and basically waved the white flag. That leaves them with Byron Buxton, a 31-year-old star under contract for 3 more years, owed $45 million total. And while Buxton has a full no-trade clause, the writing's on the wall. Minnesota is rebuilding. Why would a player like him, in the best stretch of his career, waste his prime years on a team not even trying to contend? Exactly Exactly. He might love Minnesota, but he also wants to win. Now let's talk about the player himself. Byron Buxton is having one of his best seasons ever. Right now, he's hitting 276 with 25 home runs, 78 RBIs, and a 862 OPS, all while playing elite defense in center field. And let's not forget the glove. This guy has a Platinum Glove Award, meaning at one point he was literally recognized as the single best defender in all of Major League Baseball. Of course, the elephant in the room is health. Injuries have derailed much of Buxton's career, but when he's healthy, he's a five-tool monster. Power, speed, defense, average, leadership, the complete package. So why the Dodgers? First off, we've been looking for stability in the outfield. James Outman has shown flashes. Teoscar Hernandez is powerful but streaky, and Mookie's been bouncing around between second and short. Adding Buxton would give us that true everyday center fielder we've been missing since Cody Bellinger's prime days. Second, the Dodgers always think big. We've got the money, we've got the prospects, and most importantly, we've got the ambition. Reports suggest LA might even be working on a verbal pre-deal with Buxton, basically a gentleman's agreement to waive his no-trade clause if the Twins decide to pull the trigger in the offseason. That's next-level front office work. Tell me that a lineup with Byron doesn't scream dynasty. Buxton brings speed on the base paths, gold glove defense in center, and power in the middle of the lineup. Imagine October with Buxton running down balls in the gap at Dodger Stadium. That's game-changing defense in a postseason series. Of course, it's not all sunshine. The risk with Buxton is obvious: health. You don't want to give up a haul of prospects only to watch him spend 60 games on the IL. And at $15 million a year, while it's not crazy money, it's still a decent chunk of payroll for a guy with his injury history. But here's the thing: quality center fielders are scarce. And if the Dodgers front office believes Buxton's body can hold up with our medical staff, this could be the low-risk, high-reward steal of the offseason. So here's the big question, Dodgers Nation. Do you roll the dice on Byron Buxton? Do you trust the talent, the defense, the upside, even with the injury history? Or do you think this is one gamble we shouldn't take? Drop your thoughts down below. Hit that like button if you'd love to see Buxton patrolling center field in Dodger blue. And don't forget to subscribe, because if this pre-deal rumor is real, this story is just getting started. This is Victor with latest Los Angeles Dodgers news signing off. And as always, let's go Dodgers!